How about help me sing a song? What is it?
Maybe, maybe not.
Yeah, you figure it out.
Can you lower it when you're done?
Can I lower it?
Yeah.
Okay. Are you up next? All right.
Let's do it. Let's do it. Let's do it.
This would be a hard act to lead into. There's a song I've sung in a lot of places around this country the last several years, and it always feels good to sing it outside. That's where it was written, sitting on top of a mountain, looking out over wild country. In a way, it's more than a song. To me, it's kind of a prayer. It's called Forever Wild. It goes like this.
You pull up. You pull up.
There's a magic in the air that I feel when I'm there. It plays straight to my heart and lays it all to bed. It's in the cry of the eagle and the deer so meek and mild. It's in the rise of the mountain. Let it stay forever wild, forever wild, forever wild. Let it stay forever wild. It's in all that is not tame, and some that can't be named. It's in the mist up on the mountain, and the scent of summer rain. It's in the scream of a lion when she's sounding like a child. It's in the song of the river. Let it stay forever wild, forever wild, forever wild. Let it stay forever wild. Now the earth that holds the key to all that shall be free. It's in the peace of the desert and the wisdom of the trees. It's in the grace of a swan's wing and the grizzly when she's riled. It's in all the love I bear it. Let it stay forever wild, forever wild, forever wild. Let it stay forever wild. Now there are those of my own kind. They're running fast but running blind. And the only thing they worship is their God, the dollar sign. We must fight them with our spirit, with our might, and with our guile. We must show them that the answer, it must be forever wild, forever wild, forever wild. Let it stay forever wild, forever wild, forever wild. Let it stay forever wild.
Did we ever talk about what we're going to talk about yet?
No.
So, because this was a reunion of musicians, that's kind I mean, you know, we could talk about anything, really. But the theme of the weekend was getting a bunch of music lovers together from the old days who had a common experience in the radical environmental movement, and just, you know, remember what we did and who we were and water under the bridge sense and how things have changed. So that's kind of, you know, the unique approach to this documentation of this event is to sort of focus on the music. And, you know, so when we interviewed Bart the other day, my opening question was, when did you start playing music and why? And how did it come to enter into your conservation work, and what role did music play in your work as a conservation activist? So something like that, I'd
Okay.
like to start with you. Would that work?
Sure.
All right. So
Okay.
then I'm going to ask you, because Bart plays guitar and drums.
Mhm.
At some point, he had to have a drum set and a guitar. You sing.
Yeah.
You always had a voice.
Yeah.
So I think your origin story about when you realized you could sing and what you used your voice for would be really cool to hear.
So my memories of singing is my mother sang me to sleep
And you
every night.
remember that when she did
Oh,
that.
totally. And she'd sing songs like, "Oh, give me land, lots of land under starry skies above. Don't fence me in." So those were my first songs, which I already resonated with quite a bit. My father and mother sang together for fun. Mom sang all the time when she was working in the kitchen or whatever. She was in the choir. When I was old enough, I went to the choir. I sang in the choir for years, Catholic church choir. So we sang in Latin, and we sang beautiful songs, Bach, Beethoven, that kind of stuff. And so I don't know how to read music. I have a good ear. And so singing was just part of life in my house, and it wasn't something, I never thought about it that way until you just asked that question. And it was like, oh yeah, Mom used to sing to me all the time. And so singing in the choir was something, and I loved St. Francis of Assisi, who was the animal guy. And so he was, he was the one I wanted to do confirmation as my name. You had to have a name if you're confirmed and all that kind of stuff. And so my mother wouldn't let me do it because my aunt had to be the name that I used. But anyhow, so my connection with singing and nature has been from,
Day one.
day one, pretty much. So when I got involved with Earth First, I had been, I sang in country western bands. We're going to sing this song in A as an asshole. I was drinking at the time, let's just say, and I was involved with country music, but I was also a closet rock and roller because my brothers are listening to Cream and Led Zeppelin, and I'm listening to Johnny Cash and Charlie Pride, and
Are your brothers older or younger?
younger. I was the oldest in the
You're the
family.
oldest.
So they're over there in the corners listening to that shit, and I'm like, I like the beat. So I love music, period. And music is such an incredible way to express things you can't say. And so what I did, I think, was music was my way of expressing things I couldn't speak, because I could feel it and it would come out in my singing. I didn't know any of this shit. This is all stuff. I mean, I'm old now, so I can figure all this stuff out and now explain to you why I was doing what I was doing. So the first time I got involved with Earth First, let's see, it was in 85. Okay, so I just sang all the time. I sang just all the time for fun. And I went to Europe in 1980, and I was riding the Trail of Don Quixote on horseback for a class for Prescott College, and we went to cathedrals. Oh no, I went to Europe the first time when I was in my early 20s, and I went all over Europe and went to every cathedral I could find because those places were built to sing in. The resonance, the whole nine. You walk in there and you can sing a note and it goes everywhere. And I would go into these places and sing. And I wasn't supposed to, I guess, but it didn't matter because people were mesmerized. And I would sing things like Gregorian chant, because that's what they did in those places. And so I've always known in my heart of hearts that singing was my way of praising nature and God and all that kind of stuff. And at the time I was connected to Jesus and all that sort of stuff. But that wasn't my only connection to the divine. Singing was my avenue into the connection with the divine, I guess. I'm not really sure. Anyway, but that's what I did whenever I went anywhere. When I traveled to Europe, I was hitchhiking. I was going to the hostels and stuff, and I sang and told stories to everybody about my life in America and being around horses and in the desert and all of that stuff, and I sang, those desert songs and stuff. And so that was my ticket. That was how I was very despondent when I went to Europe because my father had just died. I got to witness his death. I was 17 when it happened. And I had a lot of angst and I hated the world and humans and all of that stuff. So when I went to Europe, I found my connection back with humans again, and I'm walking on the Roman roads in Wales, and camping out in these places. I went to Snowdon in Norway and camped out with people and walked these trails and learned that the Norwegians were really connected to nature, that they taught their kids about nature, and I was just blown away because wherever I went in the States, I'd ask people, hey, how much rainfall do we get here? And what kind of tree is that? And what kind of animals live here? And people were like, I don't know. And so I was really pissed off at people because they didn't know anything about where they lived and who they lived with. The only things they were interested in was people, and they didn't care about their nature. And I was like, what the fuck? So singing was my connection back into solidarity with humans, which I didn't have when I went out there. And so when I came home, I was like, okay, I'm going to learn how to teach kids about nature, because what I learned is that the Scandinavians teach their kids about where their food comes from, where they take their kids out on fishing boats, they take them up to the farmers that are growing hay and talk about how they so they're connected to the land, and that was my whole thing. And singing was integral to my connection with land. I don't know exactly. I mean, I've never even said this shit before, but that's how I felt. And then I got involved with Earth First in 1985. I read an interview that they had with Dave Foreman on the Mother Earth News, and I had just moved up to Palace Station. I was living in the mountains with a Forest Service guy, and it was the first time I had stability, because I'd been traveling since I left home at about 17. I'd been traveling, living in a bus or living in a truck or living out of my backpack, going to places. I went to Alaska, I went all over the place. I did a whole bunch of traveling and looking at the world. And then I got involved with the Forest Service, and I went to work in the Forest Service and also was living in the mountains in the Forest Service in a place that was built in 1874. So it was off the grid, off everything. So then I had time and energy to go somewhere and not worry about where I was going to be after that, because I could come back to this cabin. And I went to the Earth First Rendezvous in Uncompahgre Plateau in 1985, and I sang around campfires. And I was with the Montana crowd because they were the most rowdy. The Arizona crowd was a lot more, was Dale and Julie and those kind of people, and they were very quiet, and they're all very heady and they're intellectual and all that. But the Montana crowd, much more my kind of people. We all drank tequila, and I played my harmonica and sang a bunch of songs, and they were wild to the wreckage. So I love that crowd, and they took me on. And at that time I did drink. So I sang around campfires, and then I would sing out in the woods. I would sing the Gregorian chants. I would sing the Canticle to Brother Sun that St. Francis wrote, and so that was where I did all of my connecting with the divine and nature and all that kind of stuff. And somebody heard me out there at the rendezvous. He said, "Oh, you got to get on stage." And I'm like, "Oh no, I'm not getting on no stage," because that was really that that was my vulnerability. That was my connection with God and the goddess. And I was great, you know, getting rowdy and drinking and having a party and singing all those rough songs. But that was my prayer work. That was the stuff that I was doing to connect with the divine. So I was scared. When I was singing in the bands, you know, I'm drinking and we're partying and all that kind of stuff. But when I was out in the woods, that was where I was really making my connection with God. And so I can't remember if that rendezvous was where, no, it wasn't that rendezvous, it was the one next year. So that rendezvous, a bunch of people who had been on the river, it was Dave and a whole bunch of, you know, river runners and stuff. They heard me out there and they said, oh, you got to get on stage and you're going to sing. And so they actually literally pushed me on stage. And I sang one song and that ran off and got the hell out of there. So that was my first. Actually, they didn't do that until the next year. So that year, I was just singing around the campfires. Then the next year, I went to the run up in 96, Big Lost River. So that's when I really got connected with, there's a pagan element of our stuff. And
You mean the pagan element in Earth First?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's when I was like, oh, okay. And I'd done a lot of studying on religions because I knew that, you know, religions kind of had a kernel of it, but they lost the plot, a lot of them. And so I studied them all and I was like, but I really liked paganism because it was about nature. And so when we did the maypole, when I heard Walking Jim sing, that was the first time I heard Walking Jim sing. And I watched him walk down from that mountain with Stella on his back and following that mountain goat. And I was like, who the hell is this guy? And he shows up and starts singing and I could not stop weeping. I was just a mess. So I was like, well, I got to learn these songs, but I can't sing them yet because I was crying too much. That's when I heard Forever Wild. And we, you know, what I love about Earth First in those days is that we had a lot of fun and we had a sense of humor. And people were reverent, but they were kind of self-conscious about it. But I wasn't when I was out in the woods. I was when I was around them a little bit. But when, you know, I'm looking at a maypole and I'm in a maypole and we're doing this whole thing and I'm like, oh, these definitely are my people. And then the next year, I think is when they pushed me on stage.
That was at the Grand Canyon, right? 87 was.
I remember you doing, I think, one thing. I can't remember what it was because I don't have it on tape. But I do remember you going on and doing. It couldn't have been a poem, right? It must have been a song.
It was a song.
Yeah, that was 87.
Okay, so that's when I met John Seed, and I got involved in the
Council of All Beings.
Council of All Beings, and I had already morphed into different animals in my life anyway, and had found my power animal and done drummings and journeying, all that kind of stuff. And when I did John Seed's council, I was then the raccoon came in, and that was who I was representing, and so yeah, I was very, very scared. I think the one thing that I really remember is singing has just been such an integral part of my spiritual life and my, you know, social life. And music has always been really important to me. And I just remember, and I think it was the year after in 1988, when I can't remember when it was, but I met Sequoia. And Sequoia was a fucking amazing witch. And the first time I ever saw her, she had no shirt on and she had this leopard skirt and she's flying in these big circles, looked like a dervish. And I was like, who? And with this red hair flying.
Have I got your attention? No?
try again. Oh my God, your attention! The energy fools, my minions.
Ryan. And I was like, who is that? And so I really connected with her. Did you ever know Sequoia?
No, I didn't.
Oh my God. She was from California.
Yeah.
Anyways, so I met her, and I remember being pushed on stage, and I was scared out of my mind, and I sang a song, and when I got off the stage, my upper lip went stiff. This is like really, okay, I'm just going to tell. So my upper lip went stiff, and I didn't know what was going on, and I couldn't understand it. I didn't get it. Sequoia got a hold of me. She saw what was going on. She got a hold of me. She put me up against a tree, and she let me ground in the tree and in the ground. And she just sat there with me and let me go through whatever I had to go through. And what I know now, years later, is that I was having a flashback from my incest. And that part of me had not been recognized. I didn't know about it. But there's a book out called The Body Keeps the Score, Bessel van der Kolk. And it explains everything in that what was going on with my body. I was disconnected. I had disconnected myself mentally and emotionally from all the experiences I had as an incest survivor. And my body was now starting to pull it up. It was now starting to have those memories and come out. And I didn't know what that was, and neither did Sequoia. But she knew what I needed to do. She knew I needed to ground. So I did. That happened after I got on stage and sang.
Wow.
And I was like, what the fuck's going on? Oh my God, kind of a thing. So music.
You mean when you were on stage or after you walked off?
I was on stage. I sort of was not in my body. My body was just doing all the singing and everything, but there was other things going on. And when I got off the stage, my body went into this place, and I was like, I don't know what's going on. And Sequoia just got a hold of me and got me brought down to a tree, and we sat down, and she just like grounded with me, and she was able to help me come back and get it together and all that kind of stuff. So my healing journey, my experience, my expression, my connection, my prayer, all of that stuff is connected with music to me. Which is why when I sing, it affects other people. Because when I learn a song, usually I hear a song, like when I heard Forever Wild, I couldn't stop crying, and I didn't know why, but I knew that song expressed something that was really integral to my essence. And so it took me months to learn the damn thing because I could not sing it without crying. You can't imagine, when I was getting ready to come here and sing after all those years with all of you, it was like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to do this. When I suggested I sing first, there was a reason. I knew I wasn't going to be able to hold it together to sing in front of everybody if I wasn't the first one.
Get it behind you, and
Get
then
it behind me, and then
then
I could cry my eyes out the rest of the day, which is what I did. And so, but it was so, that's what singing is to me. And so I never learned an instrument. I'm dyslexic as hell, and all of my energy goes into the voice so that I don't cry. But what I've learned since then, because I've met people that know how to sing very well technically, but they can't put their emotion in it. It's not possible for them in some way, for whatever reason. And I know that that's how I express, is I can put my emotion into the song. And I know the difference when I hear people singing. I know when there's a good singer and a great singer. And it's the being able to translate the emotion into voice. And that's how singing is powerful shit. It's magic. And so,
did you ever get comfortable singing on stage at the rendezvous eventually, or is it always?
No, I was able to. Yeah, I was able to get comfortable in a way when I got arrested in '89, and so that's when all of my past traumas and everything started unraveling, and I started to to make inroads into, okay, you know, I became consciously aware that I was an incest survivor. I became consciously aware of all this stuff. When I was doing my monkey wrenching, I was angry, and what I learned later is that I was projecting all of my own personal pain. And this is something that I knew about all the people that I was doing this stuff with, all the Earth Firsters and stuff. I can only speak for myself, but I was projecting my personal pain onto the Earth. So, I'll never forget this. When I was living at Palace Station, there were some mountain lion hunters that came in, and they had hounds, and what they do is they're snow hunters. So they come out after the first snow, and they bring their hounds, and they look for a track on the road. And if they find a track, they turn the hounds loose. And so that's cheating as far as I'm concerned. And I do know lion hunters that are legitimate lion hunters, and that track over, do different kind of tracking and stuff. But anyway, so these guys come out, and they have will call clients that aren't even in the field. They tree the lion, then they go will call client. The will call client comes out and shoots the lion. I'm in the mountains, and they're doing this, and I have a horse, and I am completely undone all morning because I hear these hounds. And then they finally tree a lion, but they don't do it very far from our house. So I'm completely undone. Doug is worried, my husband, because I went to the shed and I got the 30-30 out, because my beloved ex was a hunter. He's from North Dakota. And I was going over to where those lion hunters were, and I was going to hold that gun at them, and I was going to tell them to take their shoes off, drop their guns, and I'd leave them with a knife, and I was going to take their hounds, and they could deal with the lion. That's what I was going to do.
Wow.
My beloved husband was not impressed with that, because we were living in Forest Service housing. And he worked for the Forest Service. And I was, shall we just say, not controllable, because the Forest Service was very upset with me. And he very gently got me and brought me back and took the gun and put it away. And I was just completely, what am I going to do? So I made posters. Lion hunters suck. Fuck lion hunters. Snow hunting is an abomination. Just all these signs. And he goes, you can't put them on Palace Station. It's Forest Service housing. I go, yeah, but I own that fucking truck right over there. So I put the truck right in the middle of the road, and I put all those signs on it, and they had to drive by it to bring the lady over there and to take the lion back. Doug, for his part, went over there and was looking at their permits and being all official and wearing his uniform and all that kind of stuff. And I was just, oh my God. But what I was doing is I had not been allowed to have my emotions, to own my own pain or agony or trauma. I didn't know this at the time, but that was the crack. That was the crack in the armor. I went for therapy after that because I was completely undone. I had no idea what to do, and I was gonna hurt somebody. I was gonna do something rash. I thought it was very logical for me to go over there and make those guys take their shoes off and take their guns and their dogs and leave them with a knife and the lion in the tree. I thought that was a really good idea. But anyways, Doug didn't. And neither did the Forest Service. They were very upset with him because the lion hunter and the client complained to the Forest Service about my actions. They had no idea what I was thinking about doing. And then the Forest Service jumped all over Doug's shit. And Doug just looked at him and said, they said, you have to control your wife. And he said to them, you try to control my wife. He was my Anyway, he understood that there was no way you're going to control my ass. So anyways, what I learned at that point, and that was, I can't remember when that happened, in the space of all these things, but being in the Palace Station and living with Doug made it possible for me to follow Earth First and to be part of Earth First for the years that I did. And that was in the 80s and the 90s. And I was able to be in all the, I got to be in all kinds of demonstrations. I'm a total drama queen, as you know, and I was able to do street theater, and I was always a raccoon whenever I was in front of anybody, the media and all that kind of stuff. I was a raccoon. And so I got arrested as a raccoon at the North Rim of the Grand Canyon. And I went to jail as a raccoon at the North Rim of the Grand Canyon at the Fredonia jail. That was the first time I ever got arrested in my life. And I went in front of the judge as a raccoon because everybody had their people that were, being their dogs for them and taking care of everything when they went to jail, because we did all that, getting ready to do demos and such. And mine was Tom Terrific, and he asked me if I wanted clothes when it came to taking off my jail clothes and going to the court. I said, no, I'm going as a raccoon. And he was like, oh, shit, okay. So I've always been sort of out of the box.
Going as a raccoon?
I was going to court dressed in my raccoon suit because that's what I was arrested in. And when I got up in front of the judge, I was speaking as a raccoon. Which was a little disconcerting for him. He had no idea what to do with it. So yes, I'm definitely a loose cannon, okay?
I always loved that about your first demonstrations. We had, in Tucson office, we had a whole collection of animal costumes.
Oh, yeah.
And you got to pick the one that you
that's
wanted
the
for
one.
demo.
That's where I got that suit. So yes, I was very much, on the Mount Graham demos, I was always a raccoon. On the demos up at the Grand Canyon, I was always a raccoon. At the demos in Tucson, I was always a raccoon. Every time we did anything that had media involved. When we went up to the South Rim of the Grand Canyon, I was a raccoon all the time. I was reserving that. Dwight made sure that was always available to me. Anyway, I digress. So what else would you like to ask?
Well, how about reflecting a little bit about what music meant to Earth Firsters in general? I mean, what role did music play in our community cohesion?
It changed the energy. So at demos, I was always in demos playing and singing. And I remember this demo, when I got out of prison, I still went to demos, which was probably a bad idea. I knew there was feds looking for me and all that kind of shit, but I did. And I remember this one that I remember demos over in California, but there was one in Arizona. Was it Arizona? Yeah, it was. We went to one of the senator's offices or something. It's about Mount Graham. And
were the Dennis DeConcini?
I think so.
one?
We occupied somebody's office. I can't remember who it was. But anyway, we were occupying an office, and we had these youngsters there. And, I'm in my 40s now, and Dwight's there and a whole bunch of other people and all that kind of shit. And they're staging. We drive over, and I'm driving in my truck with a camper on the back and park in this parking lot. There's a church parking lot, and damn it if the goddamn feds. The cops go and they stage in that area, and I'm parked in there, and I'm like, great. And I've got Casey Neal with me. And Casey Neal and I are hanging together. You know Casey Neal?
No.
You don't know Casey? Dude!
How
Oh my
could that
God,
be?
I can't believe it. Anyways, Casey Neal's from the Northwest, and he's an incredible musician. And he sang, when I met him, he was 19, and I was like, dude, I can't believe this. Anyways, he was a fabulous singer. And he was a punky kind of guy. He was doing the punk sort of thing. But he was so connected to the land. And, oh, God, he's a Northwesterner. And you know Casey Neal.
Of course. He called me up and said, I want to send you this CD. You're one of the inspirations for a song on it.
Right.
Which was about all of us, actually.
Uh-huh.
I'm sure it's about you, too. So his album last year is still about... It's actually a story about his little group of people, of young punks in Seattle, coming into this transformation, and the people climbing in the trees and all. It's like this 6-minute little epic.
Oh, he's amazing. He wrote the song "Hooray for the Riff Raff." Do you know that song?
No.
Dude, I am going to
Sing it.
send you.
Well, it's in my video. It's in
Yeah,
the movie.
yeah. I can't sing it right now because I can't remember.
Dancing on the Ruins of
Oh my God, that's one of my very favorite songs. So I would take a rose in my teeth. We're at a demonstration in Northern California or in Washington or somewhere, where they're clear cutting the shit out of everything. And Dana wasn't there. It was, well, maybe he was there. But anyways, so Casey Neal was there, and he's singing. We're dancing on the ruins of multinational corporations. Dancing on the ruins of multinational corporations. Dancing on the ruins of multinational corporations. Ha, 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 ha. I've got a rose, and I'm dancing while he's singing. And I'm singing, of course, too. Well, not very well because I got this rose in my mouth. But anyways, he's singing this song, and it's really punky and really crashy and trashy. You know how they were up in the Northwest at that time. And yeah, he was amazing. Anyway, so he was with me. I was hanging out with him, and we were going to stay safe because we were the musicians, and I was just out of prison, and I didn't want to go back. And so we're going to this demo, and all these kids are there, and he shows up. There's somebody else. Oh, Dave White. You know Dave White? He's a drummer. Dude. God. We need to educate this man.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, because this contingent of Earth Firsters and everything that was here this time is just like a drop in the bucket of all the people that were playing and in demonstrations and all that. So demos was where we did our music. I mean, we did a lot of music for each other and everything, and our connection to the earth and all that. But demos is where music was the thing. So we're at this demo, and Casey and I are walking along, and he's got a guitar, and we come into this place where there's this big veranda, and there's all these people, and there's an office, and the cops are standing around, and these kids are yelling, "Safe mouth ramp! Safe mouth ramp! Safe mouth ramp!" And they're all being aggro and everything, and I'm just like, oh God, I can't believe these people. So I come in there, and they're saving Mount Graham, and I'm going, Mount Graham is worth saving, Mount Graham is worth saving, Mount Graham is worth saving, she is sacred land. So I start that going, and the aggros are over there trying to keep it going. I'm like, oh no, honey, we're going to do this. And then we started getting some people singing with me, and then we got some people harmonizing with me, and then Casey gets in there with the guitar, and then we get a drummer in there, and then we change the energy completely. Because the cops are getting ready to start taking out billy sticks and beating on people. And then I see a black cop over there moving around with arms. I saw that a lot. When I was out dancing in any demonstrations, I would target those guys because they're the ones, they're the marginalized people. And so, like when I'm arrested as a raccoon at where the hell is it? The Grand Canyon, up on the Grand Canyon, and we're all, there's 20 of us, and we're all chained up, and we're in this bus because when we got to the place where we did our demo, the sheriffs came in and said, how many people are getting arrested so we can bring a bus. I love that about the Arizona cops. They were so great. Or the sheriffs, anyways. The cops weren't so good, but the sheriffs were great. I love the sheriffs. And so we said, well, maybe 19 or 20 of us. They said, okay. They brought a bus. It's all a bus. The guys that were the what do they call them? The traffic guys. What do they call them? The ones that are on the highway patrol.
Oh, highway patrol.
They were the other cops called them the queens because they were always very clean, and they just hated to get dirty and all that kind of shit. They had to drive down this fucking dirt road in this mine. They were not happy. They got their cars all dirty. So when we got arrested, they threw us in their cars, but then they took us to a staging area so that the sheriffs and the marshals can put us in the bus. So we're all chained together. we're sitting in there. I got a couple of cops in front of me. I'm in the first row because I was the most vocal or whatever. But anyways, so we're sitting there and I'm singing, well, from one coon to another. I'm wearing a raccoon suit.
Oh, shit.
Talking to a black man. I got a few songs that you would probably know. So we start singing
Civil rights music.
yeah, we're singing the Mississippi summer stuff, you know,
Right.
we shall overcome and all that kind of shit.
Right.
And he's just like trying not to laugh. Everybody else is pissed as hell at me, and he's just like, "Oh my God, I can't believe this." So he was seeing the humor in it
Sure.
that nobody else was. None of the other cops. They wouldn't let us stop and pee. They drove us all the way into Flagstaff about us being able to stop and pee. But when we went over to the dam, we had to go over the dam. We were singing just a little crack of the dam and just a little, a precision earthquake from, So that's what we were doing. I had everybody singing. And we would clap our chains and make noise and all that kind of shit. So I am telling you, that's what kept us going. No matter what was going on, somebody was singing or drumming or whatever. Now that changed, and because
When and why?
I don't know. I think the demographic changed. We got a lot of the kids that I saw that were sitting up in trees and that kind of thing. When I traveled around and tried to, when I got out of prison, I really wanted to tell people that if you don't get a spiritual connection to the land, you are screwed. You are vulnerable. That was my message. So I was trying to get on to people. It's like, if you don't get a spiritual connection to the land and you don't take yourselves lightly, that's all the stuff that Ed was talking about. Even though he was talking about it in a different way, it's the same thing. And they lost it. The kids that were coming in and sitting in the trees were 15-year-olds that were running away from horrible homes. And they were angry and they were afraid. And they would go up there and drink beer, 100 foot in a tree. And I'm just like, I was horrified when I went to some of these, I went to China Left, I went to a whole bunch of different places. And I saw these kids and I'm just like, what the fuck are you doing? And they weren't listening to us elders. They were pissed off. And so, I'm in my 40s and 50s by this time, and it's like, oh shit. So it came out of my hands. I didn't have anything more I could.
So that was in the 90s then when you saw
Yeah, when
that
I started to see that happening.
So you felt like you lost your audience in the movement?
No, I lost my co-workers,
Yeah.
because we weren't an audience. We were doing it together.
Yeah.
So I would go in California. I can't remember what the demo was, but I remember John Bowling.
Oh, it sounds familiar.
He was Orca. They named him Orca.
I don't remember.
He's a nurse, and he lives in San Francisco. And he was one of the most amazing. He was a bicyclist, so he did big bicycle trips across, all the way up and down. Well, I remember we had a big demo, and people were occupying shit, and they're sitting on roofs and doing all this stuff, and they did the same thing. They were like, rah, 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 they had these things. So by that time, I started taking tobacco with me and a pipe. And when somebody started hyperventilating or something, I'd walk over to take a hit of this. It was just a pipe of tobacco. But they were hyperventilating. They were getting so emotional. They didn't have any control, and they were like freaking out. And I'd get them to calm down, because it's your breath. That's what it's from. Singing is about your breath. And so I would get them to take a big hit, and I'd get them to calm down, and then they would be a little bit more, regulated. So what I'm really doing is I'm getting them out of the sympathetic nervous system and putting them into the parasympathetic nervous system. I didn't know that. I know that now because I've been studying all this shit since then. But the music was how we connected to each other and got solidarity with each other and grew our power. So the kids that were like at the demonstration where Casey and I were, we changed the energy in that situation, and there was kids in there that were locked on to. So what I think a part of the change was that they started going against the cops, and they were not paying attention to what we were there for, which was to get attention to these idiots that were doing all this stupid legislation and stuff. And so instead they got, we're gonna go up against the cops. We're gonna be rebels against the cops. So they were like, you know, it was weird. It was really weird because there was these two kids that were they were tied onto the desk and by their necks or something, and we're like, we'd gotten everything settled down. The cops were backing off. All kinds of shit was happening. The fucking whoever it was, the senator wasn't there anymore. And so we're like, okay, we're going to go to where the town hall meeting is going to be. So we were going to leave that place because the action wasn't there anymore. We wanted to go be more public. We wanted to be seen at the, you know, place where they were having the town hall meeting. And so I went in there and I'm like, you guys, it's time to unlock. We got to go to the, you know, where they, oh no, we're going to stay here and get arrested. So that's what it came about. And I'm just like, this guy's no support. So we left and let them get arrested because I'm like, I'm not going to stay here. I want to go to the town hall meeting. So there was a cop. There was this, a lot of these guys that are little. They got the Napoleon complex. So I'm being an asshole. And I'm, you know, you get all this courage when you're doing shit like that, right? And you've got all these people singing and dancing with you and all that. Oh, and I danced everywhere. I also danced on desks and shit like that. So I had been dancing on the desk in this place. And then we realized, okay, we're going to go to this other place. Dwight's there, all these other people there. And I remember this little guy he was a cop, and he wanted to get me because he found out who I was. And he was going to get me. It was a long-haired woman with glasses. I go, great. There's a lot of long-haired women here with glasses on, so I'm good. Anyways, he was going to try and find me. And so I found him first, and I started pretending like I was him. I was walking behind him, and everybody was laughing, my friends. And then he found out that I was doing that, and he turned around and started chasing me. And Dwight, my hero, this guy's about this tall compared to Dwight. And he just walks up in front of him and stands in front of him. The guy runs right into him in the chest, and he looks at him, down at him, and goes, don't chase her. That's a friend of mine. And then 5 cops jumped all over Dwight and took him to jail. But he saved my ass that day. I ran across Swan Avenue at 150 miles an hour, did not look for traffic. I was just like, I gotta get out of here. So I went, got my truck out of the staging area, drove back, found Casey, said, get in! And I drove the hell out of there. And we had to go eat lunch somewhere or something because I was like, the adrenaline was pumping. I was like, oh shit, I just dodged a bullet. So singing at the demos was where we did the most amazing shit.
It sounds like part of the role of singing was, you mentioned earlier, bringing people together.
Yes.
Creating cohesion.
Yes.
And that's
and
one thing.
Harmony.
And harmony. I wish I could harmonize.
Coherence.
Yeah.
That's the word John Trudell would use.
Yes, that's exactly right. Yeah, I got to be on stage with him a couple times too, and let me tell you, I was like, dude, we are on the same page. And he knew it. He knew it. We didn't talk much, but he knew and I knew, and we didn't have to talk about it. I love John Trudell. He was fucking amazing.
He's in my movie too.
Is he?
Casey's in my movie.
Excellent. Excellent. Excellent.
Do you think that's why we like sharing, like the Little Green Songbook was a place to get all the words down and the chords so that everybody could sing along?
Right, just like the what Pete Seeger did. And I have those books, and I have the Hoot and Annie Holler books. I have all the books that the Earth Firsters put together in all their generations. But there isn't one now that's being made.
No.
And they don't have, there's not a cohesion anymore.
Another mark of the change
Yeah.
that you're talking about happening in the 90s.
But you know what? I went to a rendezvous in 2018 because Karen Pickett and Karen Coulter pleaded with me to go because we're the oldest people going to be there, and they wanted me to be part of the history of, you know, Earth First to be there and all that kind of shit. And I'm like, I don't know, man. And I went, and it was very interesting. And there were some amazing musicians there.
Where was it?
New generation
Yeah.
musicians.
Yeah. There were a cappella singers,
Mm.
which I've always dreamed of being a part of. A bunch of a cappella singers. It was in Utah,
Mm.
and I drove up there by myself, and I met up with Karen and Karen, and we were the three fates. We were the Lorns. We were, you know, that's what we were, and a lot of these people had no idea who the hell we were or who I was, for sure, and the thing that was weird is that the people that were on the committee, they brought in all these people, indigenous people from all over the country, and a lot of them were people from cities. And I know a lot of indigenous folk, and I know more people that, I don't have a lot of friends, but I've been part of coalitions, and I've been, you know, I've been in camps like with the Apache. I've done a lot of work with them and all that kind of stuff for Mount Graham, and also with the Hoot-Zuni and with the people of Hopi. There was a bunch of stuff that went on in Prescott. They were reclaiming their place and stuff there. And when they came to do demos, I would walk up wearing my T-shirt with the snake on it, you know, and Earth First.
Don't tread on me.
Don't tread on me. And I would say, I'm representing Earth First, and I want to be of service. What do you want me to do? And so they would use us and our privilege, because we had privilege, and they would use us for things that they couldn't get away with. And that's what we would do. But I only did what they wanted me to do. I didn't do anything else. And I didn't do any of that aggro shit that we did otherwise when we were doing our own thing. But we were in cahoots with the Havasupai and with all the people that was going on up in the uranium mining area and stuff. I went to their powwows.
Snowball.
Huge thing. Yeah. Clee Benally and his crew and all that. I was totally involved with them as an ally. I was not running the show. I never did run the show. I was just a cheerleader mostly. So I had that kind of relationship with everybody, and a lot of these folks that came in were really mad. It was like they finally were able to express their anger. And we were the whipping boys, and so it was really, and it was kind of weird. But I did meet another shaman, a woman who, her name is Sharon. To white folks, I don't know what her real name is, and she's Lakota, I believe. But she was really strong Standing Rock. So this is after Standing Rock that this 2018 thing was. But anyways, so we're at the campfire, and it's during the day, and we have this rally, and we're all going to talk, and I'm going to talk about people that have, they had a whole bunch of stuff. They were going to talk about people that had died, that a lot of them got killed or overdosed or killed themselves or whatever, and these are young people, and so Karen and I, we wanted to represent for some of the other people that we knew, like Tony Merton and Gypsy Chain, and, you know, people from the past that had died. And so we were standing up and giving our little eulogy thing, and you know, walking Jim and that kind of thing. And I wanted to sing, and they let me sing one song, and then they told me I was done. I was like, okay, that's fine. So I sat down. Nobody even wanted to. There's a couple of people that came up to me and wanted to hear the story, and I was like, well, it happened 30 years ago, and I'll tell it if there's enough people who want to hear it. But I'm not going to tell it to one person. Not here. No, I don't have time for that. And so nobody came to hear, and I was like, fine, I don't want to tell it. I had an audience the other night that knew and understood, but I didn't have that audience there at all.
In your work with Indigenous activists, does music play a role in? Yeah,
when we do powwows, everybody's singing and dancing. So, like when we did the powwow up on the rim for the Grand Canyon, there was me and Ilsa and all that kind of stuff, and we did our own little thing. We did our own little ceremony stuff, but they had ceremony where we danced all night long in their way. We danced just with them. So they were running the show, and we were participating with them. So they had the drummers that would sit around the drum, and I guess they're the hummingbirds, or I can't remember what they call themselves, but anyways, it's like 4 or 5 guys that are sitting around this huge drum, and they drum for a long time, and we are dancing around them and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, that was huge. That's a huge part of Native American life. If you're really going to reconnect, a lot of these people were in schools and taken away from their people and taken away from their culture, and so they didn't really have a connection with it. But where that stuff was really alive still was definitely music was huge, which is why I think we were so successful when we were doing our thing, because music was huge.
Yeah.
Just like any real movement, like what the folk music stuff that
Vietnam War protest had all kinds of songs. The
Yeah.
civil rights movement was built
Completely,
on shared music
yeah. So that's what's missing.
today.
Yeah.
But it's not missing from your life, is it? What's music in your life today?
Well, it's weird because I haven't really thought of myself as an activist for a long time. I live in the mountains by myself with a bunch of animals, and I do mundane work. But that's what's on the surface. Mostly, what I'm doing is reconnecting with the invisible world and reconnecting with intention and the power that we have given away as in the culture. Our whole lives are given away in so many different ways, and so I'm taking my power back and being an example, I think, and hanging out behind all the little animals. And so once in a while, somebody will call me up and go, you want to go to the Mycelium Festival in Vermont? And I'm like, what the hell is that? And the guy that was doing it was a guy named Leslie Pickering, and he wrote a little zine about what happened with us back in the 80s when we got arrested and all that for the Arizona 5, because he heard me sing and tell stories in Portland, and he wanted to know the real story, because what he'd heard in the rumor mill was totally different than what he heard from me on stage. And he's like, there's a disconnect here. So he did research, wrote this little zine, and then contacted all of us, and I was the only one that answered, and then he did an interview. So
is that the little booklet you
that's
gave me
the little
yesterday?
book, yeah.
Right.
And so he called me up and said, hey, we're doing a Mycelium Festival, and we want to have somebody old school that has been an activist back in the day and that can talk about their experience. And since I'd done prison time, it might have a better effect on the young activists today, that a lot of them are going to prison, some of them aren't. But these are the guys that are trying to stop these pipelines and all that kind of stuff. And so this is all in Vermont. And I'm like, shit, I haven't been to Vermont ever. So yeah, I'll go. They bought me a ticket, all that. I still, live really close to the edge. And so they bought me a ticket. I said, well, if you guys can feed me and put me up, I'll be happy to come out there. So I did. I went with them. I found out that Rod Coronado lived in Vermont, so I got a hold of him and got to hang out with him.
Oh, great.
It was wonderful.
How's he doing?
Oh, he's doing really well. He's healing. He's doing really well. He has, he's been on the Wolf Patrol for all this time, and he's never stopped being an advocate for animals. He's a real, honest to God, true warrior for the earth. One of the few people I've ever met that is the real deal.
What's the Wolf Patrol?
The Wolf Patrol is where they are advocating for wolves in Wisconsin and up in the northern, Minnesota and Wisconsin, that kind of stuff. And so what they do is they go out and they monitor all the wolf hunts, and they monitor all the hound hunting and stuff like that. And they get between them.
Is this like a hunt sap?
Yeah, kind of like. But he's doing it through connecting with agencies. He's really, I just, the way he has been able to morph into whatever he needs to do to help the animals. So his thing is, because he's in Vermont. Vermont's not had beavers for 400 years because they were trapped out. Our success for bringing water back is in beavers on the whole fucking Turtle Island.
Including right here in the San Antonio.
I was just telling you.
Beavers and...
Yeah, and so it's really important. I'm like, have you guys gotten connected into that beaver network anyway?
Personally, here?
Yeah.
No.
That's your next act. I'm serious. Because, so he, I get in his truck and he's got this book and it's called Eager. Story about beavers. And it's
Eager beaver.
Eager. And there's a picture of beaver on the front and I'm like, what's this? And he's like, oh, this is he reads like a son of a bitch. Anyways, so I got the book, I took a picture of it and I said, I'm going to get this book when I get home. And he has now become, he's really connected with the fish and game people. He's connected with anybody that's connected with the earth, the ground. And he's also connected with the radicals and everybody. It's like you were saying, I'm not anywhere in particular.
Everybody.
I can connect with everybody. It's just like what Dana's doing. And so that's his new love. He got together with a woman who is, I guess I don't have to tell you all that now. But anyways, so I had a wonderful, wonderful time with them. And yeah, when I left, I hadn't seen him in a long time, and I'd heard all kinds of horrible shit about him, and people had vilified him and done all that kind of stuff. And yeah, I'll tell you about that later.
It's like the nicest.
Yeah.
No, the feds, they're very smart. They know how to fuck people up. They're really good at it. And these people are susceptible. And that was one of the things I did when I was driving around for the 5 years after I got out of prison, was trying to tell people that this happens and it's continuing to happen and we cannot allow it to happen and we have to get connected to each other through divine lines, not through physical, mental, emotional. It has to be divine. And when you get that, you see bullshit from far away and then you can avoid it. So, for whatever it's worth, it's happening or not happening in whatever place. So I had that, but I was brought there and I said, well, if I'm going to tell a story, I have to sing because I can't tell a story without singing. And so they had me do my story at the Burning Books store, because that's his store in Buffalo, and I stayed with this family. And then I went out to this Mycelium Festival, and when I got there, the best part about the Mycelium Festival is there's all these young people that are connecting to the planet on that level, the mycelium level. And if you've ever known anything about fungus, it doesn't act any way that human beings are familiar with. There's a book out Merlin Sheldrake wrote called Entangled Earth. And I highly recommend you read it because it's like going down a really good rabbit hole. And so I got connected with these folks, and I'm like, I don't know anything about mushrooms, but I like to eat them. And so anyways, the people that are doing that kind of work, they kind of remind me of us as Earth Version when we first started, because we were all intellectuals. We were all, birders and scientists and all that kind of stuff. And that was our avenue into, like, some of us were already there, like I was, but I love science because it's, the science that's real is reconnecting us to shit that the shamans already knew for several thousand years. And so we're making those connections again, and that's what the mycelium people are doing. There was also an awful lot of overlap with the direct action people that are doing the pipeline stuff and all of that, and that's why they wanted me to bring me in there, because I can sort of connect those two, I guess, from the past, because that's what I brought is my stuff from the past. So I was last on the panel. They had a panel, and they had a couple of guys, a Palestinian and a Jewish guy, who were really involved in the pipeline thing. And the Jewish guy, I think it was a Jewish guy, he was a Palestinian, I can't remember which one, but they did a video together of this one guy who was totally, I think he was a Palestinian, he was totally into people. He was from the city. A lot of these activists are from the city because they're in the East, and they They know that it's really bad to do what they're doing, and they want to be part of it, and they go out there, and then they get connected to the group. And then they get connected to themselves. Because you can't be connected to the earth without being connected to yourself. So this guy is in these pipelines, and he's out there, and he's like connecting with the earth, and he's a flautist. So he goes in to the pipes and starts playing this music in the pipes. And then this other guy, who's a videographer and who's Jewish, is taking pictures and doing a video. So he tells his story on film of how he left the city, gonna be aggro, fight, blah, 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 I hate this, I hate that. And then he became connected to the earth. And then he became connected to himself. And he brought the music into the pipe. And then this other guy who's Jewish is taking pictures. The guy's got a little hat on, the whole 9 yards. And we're all sitting there. This is like last year in August. And I'm weeping away the corner over there. Like, oh my God, I'm so incredible. And I got up and went up to the guy and gave him a hug. And I said, oh my God, and all this kind of stuff. I said, you're the hope for us. These are all young people. You're the hope for us. You're it. You're it. We're handing you the baton and all this kind of stuff. He and I both cried by that time. It was just really intense. And then, you know, he did his thing, and then the rest of the panelists did their thing, and then, you know, I did my little thumbnail sketch of what happened and everything. You know, I'm sitting down to this, next to this young woman. Nobody knew who it was. They just knew I was this world old lady that was crying a lot. And so I sang, and there was one earth firster in this whole thing. And I started singing for a while, and I forgot the words, because I was so emotional. And this young man stood up and started singing with me. And I was like, oh my God. So we sang it together, the rest of the song. And I sat down after, you know, I said, well, I've been a couple of years in prison, and blah, blah, blah. And this young woman who kind of avoided me because I was a little weird came up to me. She was in the pipeline thing, and she was doing a lot of really intense aggro kind of work. She sat down and she looks at me and she goes, you are. And so I'm like, yeah, thanks. And I'm weeping away. It was just it's so embarrassing. But I just, when you're an empath, you just gotta be an empath. So yeah, music.
Do you want to close this interview with a song?
No, I'm too emotional right now.
Yeah, we certainly can't sing Forever Wild. Just falling into
it'd be a
the
mess.
first word.
There's a magic in the air. Anyway, yeah, you're singing the baritone. I sang it soprano. I sang that to the judge, you know, when I got sentenced. Yeah. So that was
Walking Jim when.
Yes, he did. When
he
he
sang
got
to the judge.
he did. That was my inspiration. Well, I didn't know I was going to sing until I was told I had to speak in front of the judge before I got sentenced. And I went out, camped out somewhere, and I said, okay, God, what the hell am I supposed to do? And I get this little voice that says, you're going to sing. I'm like, fuck you, I am not going to sing. So, oh, yes, you are. Oh, no, I'm not. Oh, yes, you are. Get over it. You're going to sing. I'm like, oh, fuck, what am I going to sing? And then, of course, the reason why we were there was to keep it forever wild. It's the whole reason. And nobody ever said anything about that during the trial.
Did you get through that song in the courtroom without...
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. I prepared. It took me months. Thank God I had a couple months. But I sang it, and I sang it, and I sang. I was doing Tai Chi at the time, so I knew how to get my dantian. I knew all that. I did Tai Chi in the bathroom before I went on stage or in front of the judge. And... and I just channeled Walking Jim, I guess. I don't know, but I did it, and there wasn't a dry eye behind me at all. Oh my God! And the whole court, well, you know, there's a lot of support, and the whole courtroom was just weeping. And the judge, I kept looking at him, and he looked like he was going to cry. And my whole thought was, Judge, I want you to wake up in the middle of the night and hear this song. And I think it worked.
Do you have a favorite song about badass women?
I sang it to you not too long ago. I was in a play just recently. I don't know how I get into these things because I'm not going around looking for them, but I get invited. And I had to sing a song. It was called I Am My Mother's Savage Daughter. So I could probably sing that.
Yeah.
Because it's pretty bad.
That's pretty awesome. I'm not sure how many people have heard it.
Well, I had never heard it when she gave it to me to sing. Try to remember it. It goes, I am my mother's savage daughter, the one who runs barefoot, cursing sharp stones. I am my mother's savage daughter. I will not cut my hair. I will not lower my voice. My mother's child is a savage. She looks to her omens in the colors of stones, in the faces of cats, in the falling of feathers, in the dancing of fire, and the curve of old bones. I am my mother's savage daughter, the one who runs barefoot, cursing sharp stones. I am my mother's savage daughter. I will not cut my hair. I will not lower my voice. My mother's child dances in darkness. She sings heathen songs to the light of the moon, and follows the stars and renames the planets, dreaming she can reach them with a song and a broom. I am my mother's savage daughter, the one who runs barefoot, cursing sharp stones. I am my mother's savage daughter. I will not cut my hair. I will not lower my voice. My mother's child curses too loud and too often. My mother's child laughs too loud and too long, and howls at the moon and sleeps in the ditches. Clumsily sings the words to this song. We are brought forth out of darkness and water, into this world through blood and through pain. Deep in our bones the old songs are rising, so sing them in voices of thunder and rain. We are our mother's savage daughters, the ones who run barefoot, cursing sharp stones. We are our mother's savage daughters. We will not cut our hair. We will not lower our voice.
I have a question for you.
Yes.
First is, did you ever encounter either in person or through the book Rolling Thunder?
Oh, I read Rolling Thunder, yeah. And I'm reading a book right now by a fella named Raymond Grace, who's an Appalachian. And he knew Rolling Thunder very well and worked with him and learned from him. The book I'm reading is You Own Your Future or something like that. I was like, why the hell did I bring that book here? It's over there.
Oh, that's the book?
Yeah.
Okay, so what I wanted to ask you about is, I came into Earth first from a science perspective. Michael Soule, was one of my college professors.
Uh-huh.
In fact, it was his last class before he was going to retire from teaching because he couldn't handle it anymore.
Yeah.
The rate of extinction. I remember him talking about like minimum viable populations, where the largest, you needed like 60 square miles for each cheetah, and you had to have a minimum viable population of 60 cheetahs.
Yeah.
So your preserve had to be 60 times 60.
Yeah.
And the largest preserve was like 1/10 of that.
Yeah.
So the other part, though, was Rolling Thunder.
Oh.
And so I came into it from a medicine ways perspective.
Mm-hmm.
So when I started to experience the music in Earth first, then back a little bit. So I've never considered myself a shaman or medicine man because I don't think you can be that outside of a medicine culture.
Right.
Because it's about, first and foremost, maintaining the wholeness of the tribe.
But we have that capacity in all of us, and we need to develop it however we can. Some of us walk between the worlds anyway. And so we just learn that we're doing it. and then we cultivate it. And I don't have any shaman training or anything like that, except that I read a lot of books and I try to connect myself with nature and, try to connect myself with myself. But I am owning my power. That's all you have to do. And then if you own your power and you're already a walker between the worlds, then you're a shaman. I don't know.
I think what happened was, when Earth first happened, there was another big movement that happened, the whole New Age movement.
Oh, yeah.
And so when that came in, I think it was like, oh, now you read Starhawk's book and you become a witch. Or you read some shamanic thing and you become a shaman. And then there was this whole thing about shaman trainings. Michael Harner had his whole thing, like, all you have to do is get into drum journeying and you're a shaman.
No.
And it was like you could develop your own skills. Like, that's why I don't like the Don Juan stuff, because it's all about becoming like a wizard and about your personal powers. And there's nothing in there about the connection and the wholeness with others. And then this whole cult of people who wanted to become wizards developed around him.
That's egocentric.
I know.
So you just step out of that and leave that go and focus on your own fucking development. Don't worry about them. They're going to do what they do. It's none of my business.
Well, what I wanted to ask you about, though, regarding Earth First and that is, I think that it's one thing to grow up in a tribe that's linked to place and it's people have been there for hundreds of years, whatever. Trying to create a tribe, because we use that language a lot. We felt like in the 80s that Earth First was this kind of neo-tribe. But really, I think some of that was we had these powerful experiences, especially around the music and the rallies and stuff. But we didn't really have that allegiance with each other that you have when you're in a tribe. It's like there were so many charismatic people that we all got this high from going to these things and seeing. I mean, Dave Foreman is how I got in. It was like this.
Me too.
You got it from the magazine. But for me, it was like I saw him do his whole thing.
Once I saw him do his thing,
and the first night I was dancing with him. We did a line dance between Roselle and Foreman at La Peña. And so I think, and this is what I wanted to ask you about. Did you think of the music, and especially with your repertoire of the songs that you selected from those people? I mean, you had the Cecilia and Forever Young, but you also had He Looked a Whole Lot Like Jesus.
Oh yeah.
And some of the other funny ones. Did you see it as like, you were talking today about using it to help people tune in to their connection to the earth and therefore to themselves?
Yeah.
But did you see us as like trying to create these rituals where we would actually create a tribe that would like be a force that couldn't diminish in the 1990s like it did? Did you think there was something more happening?
I didn't have any idea. I was just going with the flow. I found people that understood my feeling. I understood. I'm a child of the earth, and I totally found people that were seeking that as well. And I didn't have any idea about tribalness or any of that shit. That wasn't anything that I was really connected with. I wanted to stop the fucking trees from getting cut, and I wanted to keep the water flowing, and I wanted to do whatever I could to help the planet continue to be herself without intervention. And it was fun. It was really fun. I wasn't philosophizing about any of that shit. I mean, I sort of did, but I met people like Sequoia, and I met people, and I can identify with stump preaching like Dave did. He was a fabulous stump preacher, man. I was just like, oh my God, yeah. I've been to those kind of places where evangelists go nuts and get everybody riled up and all that kind of stuff. So I saw what he was doing and I felt it. I didn't have any problem with it. And then I was with people like Sequoia, who totally was like, okay, so you're fucked up and we're going to get you connected back to the planet so you can be re-regulated. I didn't know any of that language at the time. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I wasn't fiddling around with all that intellectual shit. So yeah, I didn't. When it started to go south or change, I was like, well, okay, I guess I'm done here. I'll go somewhere else and do something else. So I was very sad that they were moving in a different direction, or I was moving in a different direction. I wasn't going along with that whole thing, and I felt like I got captured, which I think it did. Got captured by the powers that were trying to manipulate us through media, through all of that. And I was very naive when I got arrested, extremely naive. I didn't know. Once I got into prison, I was able to start learning how the culture works and how we are manipulated all the time. And so when I see people being manipulated, I recognize it now. And I'm able to like, oh, okay, we'll just step over here and let them go there. And I've got work to do. And so I belong to the tribe of humans. I'm part of the human collective. And so that's where that's how come I can hook up with a lot of different people. Because I'm working on, I still have a lot of judgments, but I'm working on getting rid of the judgments. Because if we don't unify, we're screwed. And so we have to unify as human beings that are part of the earth, that are part of nature, that are here, they're supposed to be here. And that was the big thing. One of the things that I noticed that I was at the first was I was very misanthropic, just like everybody else. We wanted to get rid of, I was part of the, what do they call it? Volunteer Extinction Society.
Was it VHT, Voluntary Human Extinction?
Yes. And I was part of that. And when I was in prison, I was like getting all the letters from what was that guy's name? I just loved him. He sent me stuff all the time. The guy that put that thing together.
Oh, no, I think of it with Kelpie when she did her.
Oh no, there was a fellow.
Oh, well, Matthew was into it. You mean the ones who were encouraging
extinction? Oh, vasectomies. Yeah, so that was them. But there was a guy that had an actual organization that was called the Volunteer, and they were probably connected to him. But he sent me tons and tons of stuff while I was in prison. I was always reading it and loving it. I was like, yes, I'm part of this. And I am. I didn't have any kids, so that kind of thing. And I loved it. And then I started to realize, well, if I'm going to really profess that I love the earth, I better love myself, or I'm screwed because I'm part of the earth. So I have to identify as the biome, as part of the biome. And if I don't do that, and so I already kind of had that going, but I hated humans. So then I had to become. First I hated women. I didn't want to be a woman. I wasn't taken seriously, and I couldn't. I did a lot of stuff that women didn't do. I was one of the first women that was on the water in Alaska fishing for salmon on these little boats. And I rode colts, started horses, that kind of stuff. And there wasn't a lot of women doing that. Now, shit, everybody and their dog is a woman starting horses now. So I didn't want to be a man either. I wasn't into it. I just wanted to be taken seriously as a human. Sure. But I didn't want to be, this gender stuff really... what they've done is they've lost the plot. It's like we're all humans, and they're squabbling about little piddly ass shit. And so that's the whole focus of the cultural divide and conquer thing. And so when, I was fine in New Age groups. I was fine in the redneck groups. I took pictures of rodeos and sold them to the cowboys that I was taking pictures of. I did all of that stuff. And then I had to learn to love myself, so that I can more deeply love other humans and the earth, because we're all part of the same biome, and the earth needs us to be at her service. And I'm a groom, which is a bride and groom of Gaia, and
You're a groom of Gaia?
Yeah, I'm a broom of Gaia.
Oh,
so
broom.
I'm a bride or a groom. I can be either of. And so I'm a broom of Gaia. And that means that my job is to love myself so that I can love the earth. With my life, with my songs, with everything. So I never really got into those squabbles. When there was an amoeba, I was part of it.
Sure.
And a naked amoeba, I was part of that one too.
Yeah.
And so I didn't get into these philosophical, like Murray Bookchin. What was his name?
Murray Bookchin.
Murray Bookchin.
Social ecology.
Yeah. So furry book mouse is the way Abby called him, and he got into these big debates with him and all that kind of shit. And I'd look at that and I'd laugh my ass off reading, Abby's, retort, because they take themselves too seriously.
Yeah.
And so you get your ego out of it, and the ego is a really important part of us. And so don't throw it away. You can't throw it away. It's part of us. So you just give it another job, okay? It's like, can you do something over here for a minute? And that's where we're gonna, because that's how the feds, that's how all of that control mechanism grabs us. They grab us through fear, through ego, through anger, through angst, all of those negative emotions. That's how they have us by the balls. And if we don't have anything for them to grab, they have no control.
Well, I guess, see, with the whole misanthrope thing, I was never a part of that.
Oh, I was. Let me tell you.
I was. Well, we're up where I live. We've got these big RVs that slow everybody down the highway, and we call them Tourons.
Yeah, we call them
Tourists and
Tourons.
morons and stuff like that. So I was down on the bourgeois, consumerists, people who were industrialism. So you had that kind of thing, but then at the same time, there was a kind of tribe being built. There was an internal contradiction right there, because I think, and this is kind of like what I wanted to talk to you and Dana about regarding my personal thing, is that we really aren't good at taking care of each other, except in small little groups like you described with Sequoia taking care of you. That basically, it's almost like we all became a movement of celebrities. There were so many precocious people where everyone was so interesting and unique, and like a Matthew Hahn or something, and there'd be so many of these people that it became so fun.
Oh, it's very fun.
And we got off on the fun of the thing, but didn't get down into the deep stuff that you've been talking about regarding our connection with each other.
I think all of us had whatever journeys we were on. And I was definitely connected. I mean, Dana and I, we just had an intense talk, and it's about connection and support to each other and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, there's people that were here yesterday that I am just, we just picked up where we left off.
Yeah, I had that experience too.
Yeah, so I do not have I definitely believe that we have that connection. I think it's mycelium, man. You need to read that book.
Yeah, I'm a big Paul Stamets fan. I take lion's mane every day.
Yeah, well, what I'm saying is that book that Merlin Sheldrake wrote talks about how you have to change your thinking in order to understand what's going on in the nature of mycelium, because it's completely the opposite of everything we've ever been taught in the world, in this culture, in the civilization that we're in right now. So once you get that, you're like I have learned in the last couple of years that everything I learned was wrong. So I'm open to anything. So that's the thing that I don't have any opinion about how things went back in the past, because that's the past now. All we have is right now, today, here and now, and we don't have the future and we don't have the past. So I'm really focusing on really being here now. I just read, not Be Here Now, but I read one of last Ram Dass's books about being old and all that kind of stuff. And I was like, oh my God, I love this book. And yeah, so I'm coming into that, I'm working up to geezerhood here, and so I want to get there gracefully if I can, and remember, but also to be. That's our first job anyways, to be.
Well, it's interesting what you were just saying about what you're doing now.
Mm-hmm.
That's very much how I am too.
Yeah.
And then also I think about Rolling Thunder, and you worked on a railroad.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
It's almost like, and then there's the concept of the medicine person as a wounded healer. Out of our deep wounds. See, that's something that when you were telling your story last night, I love hearing that story. It's magnificent. It definitely should be a movie, and everyone would grab. But I also knew, because of my loss, being homeless for 5 years, and your, like you said, you didn't want to go up to Canada because you would lose yourself. Well, you still lost all of that. So I know.
I lost the trappings of my life.
Well, you lost your husband was divorced.
I lost my job, my husband, my status, everything.
Well, and your ability to hang out with your friends. You were in jail.
Oh,
you were
yeah.
taken away.
Yeah.
So you've had, you tell this great story. I call it your power story. And it's wonderful. But there's the other part too, which maybe there's not a lot to say about it. But it's in you. I saw it with Roselle when he did his 6 months. He was in, before he married Karen, he was I got involved in 85 too. And Bay Area Earth First. And there were Bob Stern and Dennis Fritzinger and Jeff Hoffman and Brian Gaffney and a couple of other people. And Mike was so jovial, but then after he got out of prison, it was like, I guess it was Howie before him or after him. I forget.
Oh, Howie went to jail too?
Big time.
Yeah.
Did months and months of jail.
Yeah.
But I felt like, Mike is now kind of partially living in his own world, disconnected from the rest of it.
Oh, yeah. When you come out of prison, you're behind a glass for however long you are. I mean, I was behind a glass for a while too. And it's like somebody coming back from Vietnam.
Yeah.
It's like somebody coming back from Iraq. There's no way you can explain to them what you've been through. No way, unless they've been through it. I remember Catfish coming up to me one day after I got out, and he said, well, you belong to a very elite group. He said, I did 5 years. I went, dude, so we could talk about that. I couldn't talk about it with anybody else unless they had done time. So you have to reintegrate yourself into society and all that kind of stuff, and who you are, because now you have this thing. That's what I have so much empathy with veterans now because of that, and they understand that. They know I've been through it because they haven't been through prison, but they have been through prison. I had a girl just recently who spent 6 years. She was 26. She was 6 years in the Air Force, and she came to my place to help me as a workaway, and she was afloat. She was just like under the glass right then when I first met her. She was just coming out of it, and she was adrift. She had no idea what the hell to do next. But she came to my place because she needed to meet me, and she needed to get plugged into a couple of rabbit holes that she needed to go down. And we did a lot of work, but we did a whole lot more healing of her getting connected to herself and finding ways to go to find herself and that kind of thing. And so I totally understand that. And she knew that. When she met me, she didn't know it when she met me, but she knew it after we were together for a little while, and she's like, well, am I glad I came here? She's still connected to me. She still writes to me and tells me, but people have been through that kind of situation, like the old lady that I knew that tried to kill herself, that she tried to do herself in last year. She's in her 80s, and she ended up in a ward, a loony bin. And when she got out, I was able to talk to her about prison because she knew she'd been there. It wasn't very long. It was only 10 days, but still, I mean, it's a long time for an old lady. So we could connect on that level. And there's a lot more people out there like that than meets the eye. And so just be open for that. And when they do come out, so Mike definitely had to reintegrate himself and figure it out. And I don't know what his
I don't think he ever really did. I think he's actually doing the same thing you and I are doing. He's building his house in West Virginia and doing this kind of home thing. And I think, I don't know if he even has a conscious sense of self-healing. I don't know if he has that kind of self-awareness, but I think he's instinctually realized that we've kind of gone to these ends of what we were doing.
Yeah.
It's like that's what happened with me in 2018. It's like, I'm not running for Congress anymore. In fact, I don't even know how to connect with people on an organizing level anymore. I don't know how to do something that's really going to be productive. And so now it's like the fun of what we had in Earth First, that charismatic quality that we had, that wonderful, beautiful thing. And all of these, like Bill Duvall and Deep Ecology coming in, and John Seed with the Council of Beings. There was all this fantastic stuff from all these directions. Kind of like Haight-Ashbury in the 60s. Right? The Golden Gate Park concerts or whatever. Yeah. So now, that whole thing blew apart. And there isn't that kind of coherence. And our generation does not connect with the generation that calls himself Earth First. Now, I don't even know what it is.
Yeah, I don't know either.
But I do know that, like, there was something I saw, because I was close to Dave Foreman and Judy, that Dave had this that these are these two contrasting organizing views.
Mm-hmm.
Dave said, I can organize with anybody, vegetarian, pot smoker, cattle, whatever, if they are with us on the no compromise agenda for conservation.
Mm-hmm.
Judy, I call her thing the golden ring theory of organizing. Imagine a ring is all the people who care about preserving forests.
Mm-hmm.
Then you have a ring of all the people who are feminists. Then you have a ring of all the people who are anti-imperialists and against the military-industrial complex. And where they overlap, those are the only people you can organize, because you have to be a part of now all of the enlightened progressive agenda. And that's where Judy and Daryl, not Karen so much, she was just kind of personally close to those people. But she never, like, abandoned Dave. She and I were like the two Californians who, like, never felt comfortable with those attacks on Dave. I don't know if she felt the same way about all the Arizona people, but for Dave, she was not going to go after
Oh, no,
Dave.
she loved us.
And so I think what we have now is this thing where you've got to be, now it's the gender thing is in there. So you could be all these other things that Judy Berry would have found acceptable. Well, she was into supporting people with alternative gender identities, you know. But it's like, if that's where it's at, I mean, what I'm doing now is I'm into this because I think there is lessons here for the younger generation, because they're seeing us when we were young. They're seeing other younger people in these old videos I have. And I'm trying to think, if these movements, Sunrise, Extinction Rebellion, they're still focused on, like, supporting democratic initiatives. They don't realize that it's like those are the destroyers too.
Absolutely.
There's like, and there isn't this coherence. There's some solidarity. There's a generational solidarity they have. They're all looking at the world in the same time frame, and they're linking around that. And they all have the intellectual thing about, we get the science on climate change, and we get how fucked up the politicians are, and we're going to raise hell. And we're not just going to send money to the Sierra Club. We're going to do our own things, put our body into it. But it's not enough. And I don't really know where we go, but I think the misanthropes were pulled together. And I think the music and the partying, but of course the partying did have the alcohol thing too.
Yeah,
so it was
the
time
was
time
us
constrained.
trying to numb ourselves out from the pain. And so that's a coping mechanism, and we have to lose that as a coping mechanism.
So maybe the song sort of like, they gave us that additional little medicine to allow us to keep going despite all the horror we were facing. Well,
that's what has kept the Native people together. That's what's kept all the Black people together. The people that are marginalized, that have had so much, that have been pounded down. Music is there. That's the thread, you know.
Yeah.
So we're human beings. We're herd animals. We live in packs, and we need to find our packs. And so right now, the pack that I belong to is way more esoteric and weird than the people that I started out with Earth First. But my Earth First people are still, because we care about the Earth. That's our first and foremost. That's the first thing. That's the last thing. And all this other shit is just flotsam and jetsam. It's all just a bunch of distraction. And when people get focused on the distraction, then they lose the real reason why we're here. And that's, as soon as I find somebody that's connected to the planet, I'm in. I don't give a shit what color you are, what you're doing, or any of that crap. If you want to have 4 genders or 6 genders, I don't care. But if you're connected to the planet and not worried about your gender in relation to me, then we're together.
I think that's what it is. See that? Okay, that's what I'm trying to get to. Is that you have all of these, I'll call them bourgeois, and I don't mean to be putting them down, but I mean they come from the culture that they're from. They haven't done this deep exploration. They haven't had experiences with a Rolling Thunder or a Sequoia or whatever. They're just starting where they are at 18 years old or whatever, freaked out, and trying to do what needs to be done.
15 and 12. That's when Kim Marx got involved. She was 12 years old and homeless. I mean, the animal rights people took her under their wing. She's one of the most powerful women I've ever met, and and she's had to go through a lot of shit. She's, I love what she's doing. I'm so glad that she's doing what she's doing, because it's her passion, and she was one of the most cohesive people that could bring the workers on the docks together with the environmentalists. She was an amazing activist, and so people like her that were just adrift. They didn't have anybody. She came from the city, and so you have to get to the place where you can get out of the city and get connected to the planet somehow. And you can get connected to the planet in the city if you have someone that can mentor you there. And she did have people that mentored her in a way, but when she got into school and was learning about lichen and climbing trees, that's when it gelled for her, as far as I can tell. I mean, I don't know. I can't tell you I can't speak for her, but that's what I saw. And when I think of her, she's another one. She's like Rod Coronado to me. She's got that connection, and she's a warrior, and Rod's a warrior. I don't think of me as a warrior, although I guess other people do.
I do.
Okay.
No, because your core is centered in that place. You can't be distracted. You will never be distracted.
No. Well, I get distracted a lot of things, but I've got my feet on the planet and my roots in the earth, kind of thing. Yeah.
I guess so. It's like it's that city thing. I think we're lucky as far as our activism that we're from the West.
Yeah.
And even though I grew up in LA, I mean, I've always been backpacking in the Sierras and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But I think it's like the head stuff. We were a bunch of nerds at first.
Yeah.
Science nerds and policy nerds and people, I guess, who studied what each of the members of Congress was doing on each and every bill.
Well, I didn't do that. But,
but that's kind of like a lot of the people who came together.
Yeah.
And when I got involved in Earthers, the reason I did, and Karen Pickett had a completely different experience, but I went to these meetings and was like, wow, these people know their shit on conservation biology.
Yep.
They go to Sacramento, to the Board of Forestry. They know what all those votes are. That's why I got involved. These were the comprehensive people who took it so seriously. It wasn't like, voting for nuclear freeze or something like that. Oh, I'm against nuclear power, so I'm going to vote against that. But Karen thought, oh no, we're Earth first. We do direct action. That's what Earth first is.
Well, that's when that was her first thing. She got on the go road and saw how that worked, and she's like, okay, that's where I'm at. And she's got a whole different view than I do. I adore her. She is one of my closest friends. She was there when I was in jail the first time, and her and Mike Roselle were outside in Flagstaff, doing protests and had signs and all that kind of shit. And I was like, oh my God. And that's when I first got connected with her. And
she wrote all these great stories about what was going on out here. That's why I wanted to do the memoir. She's the one who wrote all that detailed stuff.
Yeah. And I'm really encouraging her to write that stuff. I mean, she has it all. She just needs to put it together.
Love
Just